Welcome back, baseball fans, to the 78-81 Fall League Draft Prep. Looking at teams' first-round projections, we are halfway through looking at the teams drafting 1 through 16. Tonight we'll get the next quarter of the league done, teams drafting 17 through 24. We'll start with Las Vegas, an expansion team who notoriously struggle in these exercises because they don't really have a farm system, as they are a fictional franchise. Looking at the 12 guys they carry on, Nordhagen can be improved to an everyday player in 81. He hits over 300. And Woody Fryman has a dynamite 81 as a lefty closer. Internal options. They've used internal options in both the summer and fall leagues in the past. Let's look at their keepers, though. For Vegas, looking for a candidate to be a first-round pick. And they have Bill Almone, Al Bunbury, Chris Chambliss, Milt May. There's some nice cards here, though, even though the players don't necessarily stand out as Hall of Famers, of course. But Almone has a nice 81 card. It's 300. Ace dealer, reliable shortstop. Bunbury has a nice 1980, hitting 318. Reliable everyday center fielder. Nice players in their own right. Chambliss, during this period, is pretty consistent. Hits you 275, give you about 15, 20 home runs. His OPS never gets above 800, though. None of these really spell first-round pick, possibly Bunbury because he's a leadoff hitter. Milt May, the 4 players that they are going to add to the 12 you first saw are going to be pretty good. Because Milt May has a nice 1981 where he hits 310. So looking at what this team can do in this draft, aside from who's going to be their first-round pick, 81 Almone, 81 May are 2 300 hitters. 80 Bunbury, it's 318. And Chambliss taken from one of the other years, because he doesn't really matter with Chambliss. He gives you the same stuff year in and year out. That's a good haul for an expansion team. That's a great haul for an expansion team. But does any of that scream first-round pick? Let's see what the rookie class looks like. And the 81 rookies, guys drafted. So when I say the 81 rookies, it means that the 81 card set was redrafted into 32 teams, and for the purpose of just distributing talent, not for actually playing games. And because of that, they do have some nice chips here as well. Mark Bruhard, Leon Durham, Marshall Edwards, Atlee Hammaker, Alan Hargesheimer, John Littlefield, Louis Pujols, John Tudor. Unfortunately, some nice players here, but they don't put it all together quite yet. Tudor, 4.56 ERA, not a good year for him. Hammaker, 5.54, not a good year for him. Bruhard is a platoon player, slugger versus lefties. The nice player here would be Leon Durham. 804 OPS, and can play the outfield and first base. So he could be a candidate to be your first-round pick. And going back a year earlier to 1980, you have Sal Butera, Durham with a lesser card, Jim Otten, Pat Putnam, John Tudor with a better card, and Bob Walk. So 80 Tudor has a 3.02 ERA and a 1.2 WHIP. That would be a nice first-round pick because of the future Tudor would bring. And keep in mind something. So Tudor, not sure in 1982 what team he would be associated with. It may not be Las Vegas in that draft. So Vegas may want to draft Tudor to get him on the roster now before somebody else claims Tudor in a future year. So that's a roundabout way of saying I'm not exactly sure what Vegas will do, but any of those keepers, Bunbury, Chambliss, Almone, or would be fine. Fine first-round picks. The next team is the Twins. Minnesota Twins. And they John Castino becomes a 1 at third base in 1980. It's 300. Be a nice option there. But the Twin keepers, Glenn Adams, Burt Blyleven, Rod Carew, Jerry Koosman. Interesting. So Carew has one more year with the Twins in 78. And then he becomes an Angel. So I think what they'll do is they'll take that 78 year. But Blyleven is also a Hall of Famer. And he's got 4 nice years. He's actually technically moved to the Pirates and then the Indians in this timeline, but he's still a Twin for now. So I'm thinking Carew or Blyleven would be their first round pick. Jerry Koosman gets traded to the Twins and has a pretty decent 1979 for them, winning 20 games. Twins look like they're in good shape. All right, the next team is Arizona. I think I know where we're going to go with this one. Let's look at their 12 carry-ons first. Chris Spire, Mike Vail, and Squires have subtle improvement. Not worth it being a first-round pick. Always find Arizona at the top of the spreadsheet. Their keepers are Dave LaRoche, Dave Roberts, Darryl Thomas, and Ellis Valentine. Valentine's got a nice 1980, 315, 891 OPS. Worthy of being a first-round pick. Darryl Thomas, not so much. Dave LaRoche has a year in here, or 2, where he's a good lefty reliever, but probably not a first-round pick. But if we don't go Tito Valentine, let's go to the 81 Arizona guys. I think I know what this is going to be. 81 Arizona was fortunate to go Bob Babcock, Shooty Babbitt, Danny Boone, Joe Edelin, Jerry Gleaton, Dan Graham, Larry Harlow, Tito Landrum, Randy Martz, and at the very bottom of the list, alphabetically, Fernando Valenzuela. So there is where Fernando is, 20 years old. Again, the Dodgers have an embarrassment of riches, and usually those superstar teams get their bones picked clean of talent when it comes along. And Arizona, expansion team, desperately needs a Fernando Valenzuela. And he will be the first round pick. It's got to be Fernando over Ellis Valentine. Next up, the Tigers, who the last team on the list that didn't make the playoffs. The Tigers, they carry on with only Jack Morris getting better in 1981. The Tigers will put it all together in the years of 83 and 84. But we're a couple years away from that, of course. The Tiger keepers. Jay Johnstone. Interesting. They acquired him in the trade carousel because they didn't have enough keepers. And surprisingly, Johnstone has a couple decent years here. In 79 and 80, hits 294 and 307. Not with a lot of power, but can play corner outfield for you. Ron LaFleur, if he has one more great year, it's worth being a first-round pick. His final 2 years in Detroit before going to Montreal are very good. Below 800 OPS, though. Dave Roseman, does he have one more good year left? He does. 78. He's got a 3.14 ERA and a 1.17 WHIP. That's a nice year. He doesn't get the wins, but he didn't get the support. He's a great pitcher. We're looking at the stats, and that's a great statistical year for Dave Roseman. Could be a first-round pick. And Milt Wilcox, nothing really stands out. He becomes a very consistent pitcher, probably a number 3 or 4 starter at best. Doesn't really become successful until 83, 84, as far as wins go. So win more than 12 or 13 here. Roseman could be a first-round pick. Let's look at the rookies, though. 81 Tigers. Let's see what we got going here with them. Okay. Not a lot. Reed Nichols, Tom Niedenfuer, and Dave Tobick. Niedenfuer's got a nice card with the Dodgers, a 119 whip. You're seeing, again, another Dodger player being misplaced. So that's good news for the rest of baseball. I don't think Niedenfuer would be better than Roseman. And in the 80 group of Tiger players, not a lot here either. Dave Bergman, Louis Pujols, Joe Simpson, Roger Weaver. Not a lot in the grapevine for the Tigers. I think I'd go with Roseman. Roseman with the first round pick. All right, next team. Now we're getting to the playoff teams. We'll do 4 more. These are wild teams that lost in the wild card round, starting with the Pirates. And we're getting close to more players on that 79 Pirates We Are Family team that won the World Series. So, let's see who they carry along here. Pop Stargell, 1979. That might actually be a selection, bumping his 78 to 79, because we know he wins half of the MVP award with Keith Hernandez in 79. And you wanted to get that 79 card in the league for 2 years instead of 1 year. It's only 2 years left with that card. However, the Pirates are always deep in keepers, and they got some great pitchers here. Jim Bibby, Candelaria, Bill Robinson, Enrique Romo. 3 pitchers. Bibby, in 80, he pitches on 3 days rest. In 79, he ends up being a key pitcher in their World Series run, but he only pitched 137 innings. Statistically, he's a better pitcher in that World Series run, but he only pitches on 4 days rest, which means he'll get less starts in my carryover league, so that's something to consider. The Candyman, always a fun pitcher in this era. Very good. His 79 card, 14-9, 3.22 ERA, but it's got a .116 WHIP, and he was also a big reason the Pirates won the World Series. 80, he's takes a slight step back. I could see Candelaria or Bibby being the first round pick. Bill Robinson, his monster years are over with at this point, but he still has some decent years in 79 and 80, but it's mostly in a platoon against left-handed pitchers. Enrique Romo can close out games in a couple of these seasons with whips of a .118 and a .117. The Pirate Rookies in 1981. Odell Jones, Johnny Ray, Willie Upshaw. Johnny Ray is good, but he's only hitting 245. He doesn't quite put it together yet. Nothing good there. Sometimes when you get to the bottom half of the first round, you just take the smart pick instead of the glamorous pick, Bibby and Candelaria, but you still want to do all the analysis. In 1980, Rick Wortham, that's it. So, not a lot in the future for the Pirates. And as I recall, after 79, they didn't do well in the early 80s anyway. So, we're kind of seeing that in the future. All right, next team up is the Boston Red Sox. Winners of the 2020 Fall League. They got knocked out in the wild card round by Seattle in the 2021 Fall League. They're carry-on guys. They're a dozen. No impact. There's just stick with what you got. They tapped, said, "Don't hit me." And let's see what Boston. And they got 4 great keepers here. Probably collectively the most decorated keeper class in all of Strat. Dwight Evans, Carlton Fisk, Jim Rice, Carl Yastrzemski. Oh my goodness. Hall of Famers, MVPs, All-Stars. Where do we start? So, I got to start with Evans alphabetically. And yes, folks, he's got an 81 year here. He's ridiculous. 1981 Dwight Evans, 296, 415, 522, 937. And he's a 1-2 in right field with a -5 arm. First round pick, Dwight Evans. But he's got to compete with Carlton Fisk. Now, 3 of these years with the Red Sox, 1 with the Chi Sox. 78, Fisk is still hitting 284 with 841 OPS. How about Jim Rice, though? My goodness. 78 Jim Rice is 970. 79 is 977. And which is statistically a points better than Dwight Evans. So they have co-first-round picks. And then Yastrzemski, at age 38 through 41, still hits 275 in most of the years. Gets to an 812 OPS at age 40 in 1980. Remarkable man. Remarkable player. So, I guess just for fun, I'll look at the rookies. But you pretty much have to take one of those four guys. Probably Jim Rice. Jim Rice and Dwight Evans can play rock, paper, scissors to see who their first-round pick is. The rookies for them in 81 would be Mark Baumbach, Steve Crawford, Terry Francona. That was a nice kind of addition. He actually played for the Expos, but he got redrafted to Boston because we knew he'd be their manager one day. Rich Gedman, Ed Romero, Mike Sadik. Nothing really special there. Gedman will have a good 1984. The 80 class of Red Sox to look at are Kevin Bell. Tom Herr got redrafted to Boston from St. Louis. He's not very good. Tom Hume, not that great. Actually, 80 Hume is okay. Brian Kingman and Dave Revering. Decent players, but again, it pales to the keepers. All right. Florida Marlins lost in the wild card round to Colorado. The Marlins, surprise team, really, oh boy, good news for Florida too. Wow. The 12 guys they're carrying on, they almost won the National League East, narrowly missing out to the Phillies, who they split 10 games with. And the great news is, they have 78 Bo Diaz. They could bump him up to a monster 81 card where he crushes lefties, homers and doubles and so forth. It's a hideous card to look at. Absolutely destroys left-handed pitching in 81. Jeff Leonard, more of the same, has triples on 1-7, 2-7, and 3-7, I believe, against lefties. His card, absolutely insane against lefties. If they were absolutely insane against righties, then they'd be a first-round pick. But still, if this Marlin team really wants to make some noise and shock the world, bump these two players up to their 81 year. With that out of the way, let's see who their keepers are. Florida. Not a lot, really. Lyman Bostock's final year before his tragedy. Ivan DeJesus acquired in a trade. Hal McRae and Manny Mota. Manny Mota will go out his final year with a .357 batting average as a pinch hitter. The lack of defense, though, could thwart his attempt to be a first-round pick, plus his OPS is under 800. Hal McRae, he will have a monster year in 82, I believe, maybe 83 it is, but he's still over 800 OPS in the years of 79 and 80. DeJesus is a capable leadoff player, good defensive shortstop. Bostock at 296 before his tragedy. And the Florida Rookies, let's see what we got here in the year of 81 for Florida. They ended up with a lot of guys. Juan Berenger, Bruce Bereni, Juan Bonilla, Marv Foley, Eddie Miller, Lloyd Mosby, Bob Ojeda, Rick Sutcliffe. Bob Ojeda, 81. That nice little card there. Whip of a .113, 3.12 ERA. Stolen from the Red Sox. That'd be a nice pick. Of the hitters, Juan Bonilla is a capable second baseman, hitting .290, everyday player. Not much power. And the 80 group of Florida Marlins in the young class would be David Palmer. Wow. Scott Thompson and John Verhoeven. David Palmer, only 129 innings. The only complaint was that he never pitched on 3 days rest. But he always pitched very well for the Expos during his timeline, and the Marlins stole him from the Expos. .18 whip. Wow. A lot of possibilities. Palmer, Ojeda, or the one of the two, McRae, or even Bostock, really. So, good news for Florida. Or improve Diaz or Bostock as BPA. May have to do that. This is one of the few times when an expansion team can Well, we saw Las Vegas improve internally, and they got them to the playoffs in the Summer League last year. The Marlins burn draft choices and get Bo Diaz and Jeff Leonard better. All right, the final team in this exam is the Brewers. The deserving Brewers had a monster year. They were 19-10, lost a wild card game to the Orioles. Everything is just chugging right along for Harvey Wallbangers. Mike Caldwell, they got some good starting pitching with Mike Caldwell having his best year. Looking at the carry-ons for the Brewers, oh boy, Cecil Cooper, you could bump him up to his 80 year where he hits 352. We talked about in an earlier video that they don't have Ben Oglivie yet. The only weakness on this team is ordinary play out of left field. They might want to pony up some draft tokens and some other resources to Toronto and say, look, give us Oglivie. He's our guy anyway. But the keepers for Milwaukee are Moose Haas, Bob McClure, Jim Slate, and Pete Vukovich, all pitching. So they're going to win it. They figure they have the sticks. Let's get all four of these pitchers in their best years. So Haas, that would be 1980, 3 days rest and a $1.19 whip. Bob McClure, 78, $1.27 whip out of the pen. Jim Slayton had some injuries during this timeline. Pitches on 3 days rest in 78 and 79. Nothing spectacular there. And Pete Vukovich, he actually was a Cardinal, moved to Milwaukee in 81. His best year really was with 78 with the Cardinals, though. And the Cardinals, I think, had too many right-handed pitchers. So, let's see what the Milwaukee Rookies look like. I'm thinking Oglivie, though. I'm thinking Ben Oglivie and the 41 homers has got to be the first-round pick. Anytime you hit over 40 home runs, that seems like a first-round pick player. Your 81 rookies are Randy Bass, Jim Gantner, Orlando Sanchez, Mike Stanton. So Gantner, we know, has a nice long career at second base and third base with the Brewers. However, early on in his career at age, well, it's not too early in his career. He's 28 years old. Wow, he must have started late. I think 80 was his rookie year, I thought. Anyway, 28-year-old Jim Gantner, it's 267, but he's probably a 2 at second base. That just doesn't scream first-round pick, does it? And then in 80, it's Mark Bruhard, Bobby Clark, Jim Gantner, and Gary Hancock. Now this Jim Gantner, the 1980 version, it's 282, but he plays third base and second base. He did get a late start. Nice long career, late bloomer. I think it's got to be Oglivie. Yeah, they got to do that. I mean, those pitchers we saw are all capable guys, but none of them are unhittable. But Oglivie is that devastating bat to add to that order. Plus, if we remember correctly, the Brewers just destroy left-handed pitching. Gorman Thomas, Sixto Lezcano, Robin Yount, some other guys. Be nice to have a stud lefty to help out Cecil Cooper, and that's Ben Oglivie, 1980. Yeah, that's what the Brewers will do. So that gets us through teams started at Las Vegas, teams 17 through 24. We'll do one more wrap next time and then see where we're at going into the 1978-81 Fall League. Thanks for checking out the video. We'll see you next time.